I want to introduce someone next. Now, we say if someone has big shoes to fill, it's usually, just something you say to be nice, but, I mean, there were some big shoes to fill. And thankfully, the ATU has someone like John Costa who will fill those shoes and continue the legacy of Larry. So I want to call him up to speak now. John Costa, the president of the ATU, the international president.
Thank you, Joe. ATU? In the house? You know, I thought about what I was going to say, and then Larry Hanley Way. Now, it couldn't be more fitting. Neighborhood bus driver, right, in Staten Island, and became one of the greatest labor leaders in our country. Right out of Staten Island, right out of this local. Larry's Way. You know, I don't want to talk about his past, because we all know that Larry, if he was here right now, he would say, what are you doing? What are you doing for change? What are you doing to help your brothers and sisters? What are you doing to help the poor? What are we doing to change this country? What are we doing to change our neighborhood? What are we doing for our union? And your union has always been in the forefront. I have to say that, Danny, and all of you. A very proud local, and one that leads and people look at and follow. And that's because of Larry Hanley. You know, in 2010 when I met Larry, and I was one of the guys that was fighting with the New Jersey State Council at the time, Vito Forenza. I thought he was giving away the house, so I called up the International and said, I want somebody from the International here, and they sent Larry Hanley in. And I saw this big guy walk in through the door. I said, holy shit, right? This should work. And it did. He came in, he not only taught me, but he taught us all how to organize, how to make representatives responsible when they ask us for their votes, when they ask us for their support. And we moved on, and we've done that. And then in 2010, when he became an international president, not only did he represent 1,800, but now you're over 200,000. And I've watched Larry struggle. I knew Larry. Larry was a friend, not only my president, but he was a friend. And I watched him struggle with trying to keep this union together, trying to make sure he pleased, and maybe not pleased because he more or less liked pissing people off, but pissed off in the right way, to get you pissed off to do something about it, to get you pissed off for change. You know, you can sit here and say all you want and complain. What are you doing about it? You know, why don't you get up and join your union, go to a union meeting. Delma and Monica, hello again. It's been a while since the memorial. We're in a really crisis time right now. I often, when it started, wondered what Larry would do with this pandemic. Would he have shutting it down, or would he? Many things. I lost sleep, and I kind of like talked to him and said, you know, what do we do? But at the end of the day, you know, we lost 89 of our members to this pandemic, and I think that's a moment of silence we should recognize, please. Thank you. We had many sick. We had many quarantined. And then they called us heroes, right, for moving the front lines. So we have many, many struggles here because they call us heroes and they want to give us zeros behind closed doors. So Larry's way would be bullshit, right? Let's get together. Let's move forward and start right on this street, right now, Larry Hanley's way, and tell him, no, this is not respectful. Do the right thing. Take care of us. Take care of the unions. Take care of our families. We risk our lives every day to be out there. We deserve better. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Next, I want to introduce someone who, in the spirit of Larry Hanley, always calls me out for my bullshit when I try to bring it. And that's a guy you're familiar with, and a guy I'm very familiar with, and a guy I'm very proud to call a personal friend, and that's Mr. Danny Casella.
Thank you, Joe. And I just want to give a shout out to Joe and his staff, Frank Rapiccioli, for putting this together. I probably had 30 phone calls with Frank, so I don't know where he is. Where is he? Oh, there he is. He's filming. Thank you, Frank. I really appreciate it. And, of course, Joe taking on this fight for me, and I appreciate it. Really a good friend of ATU 726. Before we go any further, I want to bring up my executive board. Please come up here. Any of the stewards that are here, please come up. And the presidents, I know Jose is here from 1179. Please come up. Mark Henry. Mike Cordiello, president of 1181. You know what Mike has been going through, and he's been doing an unbelievable job. So I know Larry would be very proud of the way you handle and everything. And I just want to say, similar to what John had mentioned, I'm curious what Larry would have did too in my position. We're going through the toughest time that we've ever had in the history of this union. Larry had a lot of tough things, same thing with funding, but never like we had now. The pandemic, we're still going through the pandemic. We still don't even have our operators reporting upstairs. The gyms aren't open, the lunchroom isn't open, and we're still going through this. And like John said, I'm curious how Larry would have handled this too, because Larry, we think about today, tomorrow. Larry was already 5 years down the road. And I just want to thank all of these guys that are behind me for all the work that they've done. And I know Larry would be unbelievably proud of every single one of you. So thank you, all of you guys. And of course, John Costa, the work that he's doing, I don't think he dreamed of becoming the international president with the pandemic. Nobody even thought this could happen. It's still happening. How many members were laid off so far, John?
Nearly 20,000.
20,000. 20,000 members got laid off. And Mike Cordiello went through, how many, about 8,000 or 6,000 members of yours? 12,000. 12,000 school bus drivers laid off. This man was fighting every single day to get these guys back. You know, people don't realize the work that he had to do. People don't realize the work that the International does. Everyone says, oh, we pay dues to what? You pay dues for these guys. They have been working. They set up all kind of websites, all kind of training. Every single day I get another email about some type of training. The last one was Zoom training. And this is the stuff that Larry would have done. I know he would have done this. You know, again, he's thinking way ahead, Larry. John, I got to say, is just like that. So, again, I can't thank all of you guys enough for doing what you're doing. We're here to honor Larry. I hope he's proud of us. Monica, Thelma, thank you again for lending Larry to us. And I say lend, but we really stole him because he was never home. We know that. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Thank you. And today, of course, we're joined by some of our elected officials who represent this borough both in the state legislature, the state assembly, and the state senate. So I'll just go in order of who's closest to me. Furthest politically, but closest to me perhaps than any other elected official. My friend and colleague, Senator Diane Savino.
Thank you, Joe. Furthest politically. That's very amusing. Thank you. First, I want to thank Councilman Borelli for helping make today possible. You know, he started out by saying that it's one of the privileges of being a councilman because they don't have a lot of perks. And he said, Mike and Nicole, that in Albany we get free food in the Senate lounge and in the Assembly lounge. It's better to be an Assembly member and a member of the Senate. What he failed to tell you, though, is that he makes a lot more money than we do, so he can pay for his own lunch. In fact, you can pay for our lunch today, too. Thank you, Joe. But I really do want to thank you, Joe, for helping make today possible for Larry Hanley, for the members of Local 726, for ATU. Thank you, John, for being here with us, for Danny, for everybody, Monica, Velma, for the whole family. You know, I met Larry Hanley 22 years ago. I was a young labor activist. He was a younger labor activist, president of Local 726, and he and I and a bunch of other like-minded people got together and decided to try and create a new party in New York State because we felt that working men and women, particularly people who belong to unions, were not having the kind of representation that we needed. And the response from government, from either party, Democrat or Republican, that working men and women were entitled to, and we created what was then called the Working Families Party. Well, it's been a long, time since then. It's not quite the party we created, but it was a hell of a ride. And Larry Hanley was driving that bus in many ways, because he knew then that working men and women didn't stand a chance if they didn't have a union. Not only a union, they needed a good, strong union. And he believed that it wasn't enough for him to have a good, strong union for his members, but it was about helping other unions also be strong for their members, and how we could build a solid labor movement across sectors, across bargaining units, and about building capacity for people who didn't belong to unions, because more and more working people don't pay dues to a union and don't have collective bargaining rights, and what we can do to improve conditions for them. And that's who Larry Hanley was. And I always used to say, you knew you were Larry Hanley's friend when he cursed you out, because he was so passionate about the things that he believed in. And it was never personal. If he took you to task, it's because he thought you weren't doing the right thing by the people that he cared about and he knew you cared about. And I was on the receiving end of Larry's wrath from time to time, but it was always because we disagreed on an issue, but never in principle. We were both committed to working men and women. And so I too wonder, what would Larry do? How would he have handled this pandemic? Watching his members go to work every day, putting themselves at risk, in face-to-face contact with the public. How would he have tried to address this? What would he have done? I don't know, but I do know this. He would have put as much effort into wondering how other workers would have dealt with this pandemic, not just his members. How caseworkers would have done it, how cops and firemen would have done it, how people who are working in Costco would deal with it, and the people in Target, how workers everywhere, whether they paid dues to his union or not, because he cared about working men and women everywhere. So I am so proud to join you all here today as we rename this street corner Larry Hanley Way, because protecting working men and women everywhere, regardless of whether they're members of this union or any union, has always been Larry Hanley Way. Thank you.
So I didn't see we have all four members of the State Assembly from Staten Island here today, and I'm going to call up the next guy who's here with the most beautiful family on Staten Island. And I want him to speak before the rest of you three, just because I know you don't want to follow this guy up when he comes up here with his beautiful, beautiful children. Assemblyman Charles Fall.
Thank you, Councilman Borelli, for making today possible. John Costa, Danny Cassell, thank you guys for your leadership, and to all my colleagues in government for all the work that you guys are doing. And I'm learning, of course, a lot from them. You know, it's really an honor to be here. Personally, I didn't know Larry, but from the stories that I have heard, I know what he has done to for you guys, and to make sure that our transit is in a better place, and to make sure that working conditions are better, you know. So I'm really honored to be here. And I can tell you one thing, you know, his legacy still lives on, you know, just because of the simple fact that we are here today having a street renaming. So thank you again, Councilmember Borelli, for making today possible, and thank you for your leadership as well. God bless.
All right, Riley, follow that up. South Shore Assemblyman Michael Riley.
Not only do I have to follow the tallest guy, but I also continue to tell Charles that when you're watching your own kids, it's not babysitting anymore. So, so in all seriousness, first I want to thank the Hanley family for how it's been said over and over today, for for Larry's dedication to the community, to the union, to the labor movement. Councilman Borelli for making this happen. ATU, making it happen. See, I've been a union member my whole life, my whole adult life. I started out in the A&P. I worked for UPS. And then I went into the police department after serving in the United States Army. So I'm still a member of the LBA. So regardless of party politics or anything like that, I know what unions do for families. My whole family are in the trades. I was the black sheep of the family. I became a cop. So my father was in local 6A, cement and concrete union. My brother's a union carpenter. My brother-in-law is an electrician, local 3. It hits my family every day. All the work that organized labor does. We may not always agree, but we all have it in our hearts that we know the impact that your advocacy has. And Larry was the epitome of that. I first met Larry in person in 2012 at ATU 1181's meeting in Queens. And it was funny, I was just talking to him, and I didn't really know much about him, but somehow that small talk, we found out we were from the same neighborhood in Brooklyn. He probably knew my whole family. Those are the little things that happen when you have those innocent conversations with people. You get to know them. You get to see the work that they've done. And I will tell you, when I left that meeting, I went home and Googled him because I wanted to know more about him. And everything I found shows why we're here today. Because it is only fitting that his legacy lives on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our Assemblywoman from the East Shore. Before I acknowledge her, though, I do want to acknowledge we're also joined by former council member Sal Albanese, who was a champion of labor during his period in the city council. I want to call up, though, Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis.
Thank you, Joe. I want to thank Councilman Borelli for hosting this event and doing the legwork in the council to make this a reality. And I want to thank all of you for all that you do each and every day. And really, we saw the amazing work that you did under very difficult conditions and the bravery with which you did it, going out there when others wouldn't leave their homes. So thank you very much for keeping this city moving. I want to just say briefly that, you know, when you look at what you expect in leadership, what you want in someone who is leading your organization, whatever organization that may be, you want someone who's really going to fight for you. You want someone who's going to go to bat for you, who's going to hold others accountable, and that is exactly what we had in Larry. Larry was someone who you knew, your members knew, that he was going to fight, whether it's standing up to MTA management, whether it fight to restore bus service, fighting for fair contracts, fighting for proper health care. You had that in your leader. And that is why he is so greatly revered and missed by those who are here today. Because he was not just your leader, he was your friend and he was a family member. My dad was a member of the Hotel Motel Trades, Local 6. And I understand how important union leadership is and the benefits, the health care that my family had the privilege of having because of my father's work. And that was his second job. He always had 2 jobs, but that was the one that provided his health care and his benefits. So my condolences to the family, but also congratulations that today we're doing something so special for Larry. And of course, I want to just thank the union, thank Danny Casella, who I've had the pleasure of working with over the last decade as a member of the Assembly, fighting to restore bus service. But you also have a great leader right here because he also stands up when it's needed. And he's doing that right now in terms of getting you what you guys deserve. But he did it during the pandemic, fighting for supplies, calling all the electeds, telling us what you needed. So thank you, Danny, for your leadership now, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you.
Thank you. And the final elected official on Staten Island is our Assemblyman, whose district we currently are occupying and he probably is closer to me politically than he wants to admit. But nonetheless, wonderful assemblyman and the dean of the Staten Island delegation, Mike Cusick. That was close. Oh my, I'm sorry. You Irish, you know?
Yeah, don't say it. Don't say it.
Yeah, all is Irish. Well, thanks, Joe. You know, it is funny, Joe, that you mentioned about us being close to maybe political philosophies. I would doubt that, but I just can't, knowing Larry Hanley for 30 years, I can't think that Larry's not chuckling a little bit right now that Joe Borelli, who's a regular on Fox News, is emceeing a ceremony naming a street after Larry Hanley. And all of us who knew Larry know how ironic that is. And but it's just how great Staten Island is and who Larry was. Because many of us who knew Larry, again, I knew Larry 30 years, met him when I was in college, and he learned a lot from Larry. I see Sal over there and helped Larry on Sal's 1992 congressional campaign. But Larry was always looking out for his members, no matter what mischief he might have been getting into, which, again, he liked to do, right, Vic? He liked that. And he, I can always hear that laugh, you know, that, ha! You know, that Larry would do if you said something that he found amusing. And this is fitting that we're naming a street after a man who gave his all for his union, his family, but for this borough. You know, many of the causes that Larry took up as a union leader, the local here in Staten Island, had effects on all of Staten Island. You know, he led the charge on making sure that people of Staten Island had proper transportation. They had the buses. He was the one, and the union was the people behind fighting to make sure we got our fair share in express buses. We got the bus lines that were needed. And if it meant picketing people's houses, Larry did it, right? If Larry got into a little melee or so with the borough presidents or elected officials, it did not matter because he was doing it for the good of his union and the good of Staten Island, and people knew that. And that's why no matter who you are, whatever political spectrum, whether you were in management or another union, you loved Larry because you knew he was genuinely fighting for what he believed was right. And that's something that I think every single person here takes away from the life of Larry Hanley, is that you fight for what you believe is right, and you'll never be wrong. I want to thank Joe for putting this, all jokes aside. This is a great honor to have this street named after Larry. I want to thank John from the International, and of course Danny Casella for all you do, and Delma and Monica and the family, thank you. As Danny said, thank you for, what did you say, you stole him?
Stole him, yeah.
But lending him to Staten Island because he truly did make a difference for the people out here. And we miss him, but his legacy will always be with us. Thank you so much, ATU, and thank you for all that you're doing during this pandemic. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. I just want to say, obviously, and I definitely don't want to get political, but I just want to explain something about Staten Island. Obviously, we're going through a presidential election, and we look on Facebook, our own members are fighting with each other back and forth. And I just want to say that if you look at all of these politicians that are right here, we have both sides. We have Democrats, we have Republicans. I think they need a hand for the way they get along with each other. They need a hand. you see, look, usually Diane doesn't get that close because then someone takes a picture. So they don't do that.
And this isn't because
This
of
is
the
Larry.
pandemic.
Yeah, so Larry probably would have thrown me out of office if I had Republicans here. But just so everyone is aware, 8 to 726, we don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. We don't care. We care about transit. We care about public funding. They all care about that. So we back as many Republicans, if actually I think it's one more than Democrats, and every single one of them here is for public transit. So let's give them another round of applause. Absolutely union. Every one of them is for the unions, and that's a good thing. Charles, you got a beautiful family, beautiful, and they haven't said a word, so I don't know how you did that. My granddaughters, they would have been all over the place here. So thank you for all that you do for us too, and he helped us a lot with the Amazon also. So thank you. And Monica, again, your family, Vic. I know Vic, he's been with Larry for I don't even know how many years. And he was a good friend of Larry's, did a lot of work for this union. I mean, even if when he wasn't an officer, he did a lot of work for this union. And let's give Vic a round of applause too. And I don't know if there's anybody that wants to say anything. If they, I know a lot of you. Yeah, a lot of you did not know Larry. Larry left this local in June of 2002. So anyone that started this job after June of 2002, you didn't know Larry as far as working with him. So, but where's Mike Cordiello? Mike, where'd Mike go? Mike, come up here. Mike has the biggest ATU local in the whole international, and it's right here in New York, and he's a true great labor leader. I just wanted to say a few words.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Always nice to be solicited when you don't know you're going to talk.
It's the best way.
I would just tell you, I know Larry probably over 25 years. First time I met him was on an organizing drive out in Long Island. And we were just organizing Long Island. We were successful with Larry's help to organize 3,000 people in Long Island. We do represent approximately 14,000 members. Larry was an exceptional person, as everyone has said. He was always there when you needed him. I got to tell you, John Costa was the executive board member delegated to 1181, but you know who our real delegate was? It was Larry Hanley, even as president of the International. Larry always wanted hands-on when it came to certain things in New York, and I got to tell you, when it came to time when we had to go on strike, 9/11, all those things that affected school busing in New York City, Larry Hanley was there for us, I can tell you that. He made many trips into New York City to sit with us, talk to the mayor, talk to the mayor's officials, and got so much done for us. So Larry was just an incredible human being, and I like the name, Larry Hanley's Way, because we did everything Larry Hanley's way. We certainly did, and I thank him for everything that he's done through the years. And not having a prepared statement, I think that's all I have to say, but thank you, Larry Hanley, for all that you've done for us.
Thank you, Mike. Where's Mark Henry?
You thought you could hide.
No, I'm gonna get him. There he comes. And Jose, you better be not far behind him, because you're coming up next. Mark is the president of 1056 out in Queens. We came to know Mark for quite a while when he was vice president, and then became president when Danique Miller became a city councilman. And Mark is another big advocate for all the unions, not just his. And Mark?
I know how Mike feels. Thanks, Dan. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to the family. I've known Larry for a number of years. Larry came to our local to help us out back in the late 90s. and he kind of got us straight. If you know Larry, you know what that means. He said what he had to say, he did what he had to do, and made sure that 1056 was back on the straight and narrow. So we owe Larry a debt of gratitude for forever and ever. He got us straightened out. He moved us forward like he always tells us. You're doing this for the members, not for you. This is for the membership. Make sure you take care of your members. Make sure you take care of your members' families. They'll take care of you in the long run. This is not a short run. This is a long run. And we do everything long range, just like Danny said before. Larry thought far down the road, 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Larry was an exceptional man, greatly missed by our local, greatly missed by individuals here. And I know I've spoken too much, and I'm gonna let somebody else get a chance to speak. But again, debt of gratitude to Larry, and again to the family, the Hanley family, for letting Larry be a part of the ATU family for the number of years he was here with us, and will be greatly missed. Thank you.
We're going to put Jose on hold for just 1 minute, and we have a... You're probably glad, right, Jose? Yeah. Jose's the new president of 1179, and I don't really like putting new presidents on the spot, but, you know, I always felt speaking without a script is a lot better, so you'll be all right. So our last speaker, before we bring up Monica Hanley, is going to be no stranger to anybody, and a great friend to ATU 726, and an even better friend to Larry Hanley. And they grew up together, they worked together, many campaigns together, and probably Larry's best friend, our mayor, Bill de Blasio.
You know, you're right, we grew up together. A lot of us grew up together with Larry Hanley. And I gotta tell you, when I was thinking about the things to say about this man, I thought one of the easiest way to say it is Larry Hanley always told it like it was. Right? Did you ever get the feeling Larry Hanley was holding something back? Right? Larry Hanley told it like it was. And there were some people who didn't like that. And there were some people who were made uncomfortable by that. But there were a lot of us who were cheering him on every time he told that truth, right?
Absolutely.
There were a lot of us who felt that Larry said the things that we wish more people would say. We wish more people would acknowledge and own those feelings, those beliefs. And I felt from the very beginning, I met Larry Hanley in 1989. And Danny, we all go back a long way, don't we?
Yes.
And thank you, as always, Danny, for what you have done carrying on Larry's tradition, the beliefs, the belief in working people. Thank you. And thank you to everyone in the union, because you have lived up to what Larry hoped for this union, for 726 and for the International. You've been living out this dream and this vision. But I'll tell you, I think back to 1989. And I got to know this guy. I'm like, how is this guy doing all these things? How was he taking on all these fights? And always with this incredible sense of what could be. And here's what I saw over time, that you could not defeat Larry Hanley. He might have a setback. He might not win that round, but you could not defeat Larry Hanley. Am I right? He had the purest, strongest belief in the goodness of working people, in the power of the union, in what could be if we all worked together. He loved Staten Island. Sometimes politically he wasn't so sure that Staten Island loved him back, but he loved Staten Island, and he worked for what we believed, what he thought would be good for Staten Island and its future. So what I saw was a guy who just would not stop. And it always gave me just a profound sense of admiration. I mean, there's a heroism to someone who stands up, no matter what the odds, and stands up for other people he believes in and cares about. That's what Larry did time and time again. And then I remember the day that Larry said he was going to run for international president. And this is a guy who I always thought of as like one of the most noble underdogs. But I didn't ever count Larry Hanley out, because sometimes he won, sometimes he lost, but he was always in the game. And when he said he was going to run for international president, I had this kind of, just a glow inside, the notion that a man who so truly cared about people could rise up to that level. And it gives you a little bit of faith to remember that someone so good had the opportunity to represent workers all over this country. And he did it with passion and heart. So I'll just say this. We all were blessed to know Larry Hanley. If you really knew Larry Hanley, you became a better person because you knew Larry Hanley, right? You gained a little more hope. You saw a little farther into the future. You saw power where maybe people didn't realize it was there before. If you really knew Larry Hanley, you were, in some really meaningful way, made stronger and better because he was in your life. And I can just tell you, I was so honored to have known him. I'm so honored I was one of those lucky people, like so many people here, who really knew him and really got to be his friend. The last thing I'll say is this. If there's anyone in the world who would say he stood on other people's shoulders, it would be Larry, because he never took the credit for himself. He always would give the credit to all of you. And he would give the credit especially to his family. Because some people love their family and they don't really think a lot about the world around them. And some people care deeply about the world around them, but they forget they have a family. But Larry Hanley loved his community, his union. He cared about working people, but he loved his family passionately. He talked about them all the time. And his family gave him the strength and the heart that made him so great. So it's my honor to bring forward to you someone who really carries on her dad's spirit in so many ways and learned the great lessons from him. Monica Hanley, come on up. Not allowed to hug, but.
I don't do this very often, so I had to type up some words. Always do. So, this year has been extremely painful for everyone here today. Whether you lost someone or became sick, you lost your job, or had to leave your job to take care of your children, or have to bring your children to your job, I think you left, but. Or if you're like me and seem to be always going through an existential crisis, I want you to know that my sweet mother is always praying for you and would tell you to make it your mission to provide when people need you and ask for help when you need it. My mother, Thelma, my brother Larry, my uncle James, and the rest of the Hanley and Mayo families appreciate the work that went into today. Dad was not afraid of what some may call immature antics, so long as there was a purpose to it. In his first few years of becoming a driver, his request to move from his original Brooklyn depot to Staten Island was escalated predominantly because of the troublemaking he and some drivers were doing around demands for protections for transit workers who were being assaulted. I'll tell one story, but have nothing to back this up, I want you to know that, except for my family memories. Dad won a special election in 1984 as Secretary-Treasurer 726, but was the only person on his ticket who won. So he served his first term with the opposing officers who weren't going to make Dad's entry into union organizing or leadership easy. Dad, with the other board members, would take rotating shifts off from driving to do labor relations work at the island depots, and in this situation, Dad would always get the last possible pick. So they sent him to the smallest depot, which was on a pier in Clifton called Edgewater, and sparsely used for morning and evening trips, and certainly not a hotbed of activity. Dad didn't have any members to talk to there, or anyone to talk to, or any real issues to work on. He was sort of sent there to be forgotten. The on-site TA supervisor made it clear that he wasn't going to take any of Dad's shit. The first time that Dad went to that supervisor with a problem, Dad was, of course, told to get the F out of the office. This is from my dad's perspective. I just want to let you know. So, Dad wrote a grievance, and then he wrote another one, and another one. He wrote a grievance for every single oil slick, and every broken bathroom door latch, and every single broken light bulb. He walked around all day doing the only thing he could think to do with the circumstance he was given. After a couple of months, the quiet Edgewater Depot not only had the most grievances filed on the island, but the most filed in the entire system combined from all depots from all 5 boroughs. And if my father were here to tell that story to me today, or retell that story, I would interpret it as such. Whether people don't recognize or acknowledge your own power, or they are intentionally undermining it to protect their own, do not let them chip away at your self-esteem, prevent you from making your contributions, or stop you from your mission, because we have big things to do. Thank you for spending the time in the middle of all that's going on to acknowledge and celebrate all those grievances.
Thank you, Monica. I thought you said you're not used to doing this. You did a great job. So let's have another round of applause for Monica. And before we do the unveiling here, I just want to bring up Jose. You thought I forgot you? Yeah, well, I got to get him used to speaking in front of people, you know? So let me bring up Jose De Jesus from 1179 in Queens, Mark's neighbor.
Thank you. When I met Larry the first time I met him was, I believe it was Toronto Convention. I was still a shop steward then. And it was amazing that I walked up to him, I said hello, I introduced myself. He literally took the time and the effort to know who I am, or who I was. And it inspired me to become what I am today. And behind the leadership of Costa also, that the local leadership takes the time in the officers and helps you and guides you to become the leaders that we need to be for our union. And that alone, I'm very proud to be an amalgamated transit union. And for the time that Larry took, was barely 5 minutes, it meant the world to me as a young officer. I thank the family for borrowing us, or as Danny said, stealing him. And I thank the International for helping me become the president I want to be.
Thank you. See, Jose? That was easy, right? And Bill, I'm sorry for blocking your view. I didn't realize I was blocking you.
That's in your own mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, I want to thank everybody for coming, and we're going to start the ceremony, and I'm going to turn it back over to Councilman Joe Borelli.
Thank you. I think, Danny, it was the glare, actually, off the back there. That's what it was. Monica, if you would mind coming up again, and to everyone in the crowd who wants to take a picture, this would be a good opportunity to get in that position. I'd ask the mayor and John and Danny to join me, and we'll each take a piece of the rope, and we'll pull it. Grab a piece. And on the count of 3, we're going to walk.